All preceding variants, including the T-26, BT-7, and the massive multi-turreted T-28, were phased out to make way for the new medium tank. Production was similarly divided, with Leningrad providing the L-11 gun, Kharkov providing the diesel V-12, and Moscow providing the electrical components and armored hull, with final assembly taking place at the Stalingrad tractor factory. After July 1941, all these susceptible manufacturing sites underwent a massive migration to the east. The T-34 was much improved by studying its preceding variants, and mass producing began in September by Koshkin's replacement, chief designer Alexander Morozov, in 1940. The 1941 had various modifications, most of which were intended to make manufacture easier. Only Stalingrad production lasted until the conclusion of the fight, when German forces surrendered in early 1943. However, the model 1940 suffered from a number of flaws. Because the intricate hull front armor component was difficult to construct and there was a lack of V-12 diesels, most of the model 1940 series tanks were outfitted at the Gorky plant with the BT tank's Michelin M17 engine as well as interim transmission and clutch. The first L-11 76mm cannon was criticized for its poor muzzle velocity, thus the F-34 was created at Gorky instead. The T-34 medium tank had a long and illustrious career. This Soviet tank was instrumental in repelling the German invasion of the USSR in 1943 and remained in service for decades. Between 1937, when the Soviet Union fielded 20,000 tanks in 3 classes, such as close infantry support, breakthrough, and long range, and between 1939 and 1940, when Soviet tanks performed so poorly in the Winter War with Finland, Joseph Stalin's paranoia resulted in the exile and execution of virtually every Soviet commander from colonel onward. In doing so, he decimated one of the best equipped and best led armored units in the world at the time. As a result, the demoralized and undertrained Red Army lost roughly 18,000 tanks in the first 6 months of Germany's invasion of Russia. M.I. Koshkin, the T-34's designer, began work on a new fast tank in 1936, which was to be a hybrid wheeled and tracked vehicle similar to the concept of the BT fast tank of the early 1930s. However, in a risky move given Stalin's obsessive loathing of technologists and troops, Koshkin claimed that tank personnel seldom utilized the BT in wheeled mode. He also advocated building a tank with rounded and slanted edges to maximize the efficiency of its armor plate. During the 1939 and 1940 Winter War, General Georgy Zhukov began to reconstruct Soviet armor and training, but the critical time loss due to Stalin's purges was never made up in quality, just in number. The Pringlizhet Chetverki Russian for 34, as it was known to Soviet tankers, was the first tank to wear rounded and sloping armor, which was based on unique technical research in order to achieve greater protection. The idea was simple. If 2 inches of steel plate can survive a strike from a warhead traveling at a given velocity, then angling that steel plate so the warhead has to penetrate more steel will increase the armor's effectiveness. In 1939, 2 prototypes, the A-20 and A-32, which subsequently became T-32 with 45mm main guns, were developed and tested. The Armor Directorate requested thicker armor and a bigger cannon, which Koshkin's team soon delivered. The new tank was designated the T-34. The T-34 was ordered into production as forces assigned to the invasion of Finland were already deploying to their staging areas. In January 1940, the first tanks rolled off the production line. In June 1940, after final testing of the production prototypes, full-scale manufacturing was ordered. The T-34 medium tank's equipment was minimal, yet it was sufficient to repel the invasion. On June 22, 1941, in the Belarusian city of Grodno, the T-34 saw battle. But it wasn't until September 30, 1941, following the fall of Kiev and the launch of the new German attack in the direction of Orel by the 2nd Panzer Army, that the T-34 truly caught the attention of German armored forces. T-34s assaulted and mauled the 2nd Panzer Division of the 2nd Panzer Army at Mzensk on October 6th. The balance of power did not shift in favor of the Red Army until the Battle of Kursk in July 1943, where the balance then shifted until the hard winter of 1943, which compelled the Germans to retire to Berlin. The T-34 medium tank added weight to the Soviet side of the equation. Although it was a highly good tank, it was also the most simply constructed, having the fewest comforts for its crew. Germany's Panzerkampfwagen 5 Panther was a better tank pound for pound, but the T-34 was built at 8 times the Panther's rate. The Soviets were compelled to fight and win armored engagements via attrition, just as they did infantry and air combat. Their opponents were just outnumbered. A camaraderie formed between civilians, manufacturing workers, and frontline soldiers that proved unbreakable. Proud civic organizations would give monies to purchase a T-34. They then presented the new tank to its crew, who were sometimes transported right from the front. This was part of the T-34's allure. The T-34's turret face armor was 2.36 inches thick and slanted at 30 degrees. Germany's Panzerkampfwagen 3 and 4 tanks had stronger armor, but the T-34 outran both. The T-34 was equipped with a 41.2 caliber 76.2 mm main cannon capable of piercing more than 3 inches of German armor at 500 yards. Initially, the T-34's turret was built of welded rolled plates. This sort of turret was costly and time-consuming to produce, and it was quickly replaced by one made of cast steel. The T-34 employed the same 500 horsepower diesel engine that powered the BT-7M fast tank. The T-34 could reach 31 miles per hour and had a range of 186 miles. During the conflict, minor modifications were made to the T-34. A new turret design with 2 hatches was created. The redesigned turret also removed an overhang at the back, which was a common hiding spot for German infantrymen. Front armor thickness was upgraded to about 3 inches, and external fuel tanks were installed, increasing range to 270 miles. However, the most major alteration happened in late 1943 during the Battle of Kursk, when a new cannon was installed. The 51.5 caliber 85 mm Model 1934 main gun was designed primarily to overcome the armor of the newly deployed German 5 Panther. When T-34s were utilized in massed formations, as they had done at Kursk, the antiquated 76.2 mm cannon could hardly pierce the heavy armor of the Panther and Tiger I. However, the new cannon, based on the Model 1939 anti-aircraft gun and employed on the KV-85 heavy tank, had a muzzle velocity of 2,600 feet per second and was capable of penetrating 3.7 inches of sloped armor at 1,000 yards. The T-34 with an 85 mm cannon was built until 1949, when it was superseded by the T-54. The T-44, the last derivative of the T-34, entered service in the closing days of the Great Patriotic War, as World War II was known in the Soviet Union. The T-44 proved unsuccessful and only a few numbers were produced. They were employed to put down the 1956 Hungarian uprising. In total, 40,000 T-34s and 85 mm gun T-34s were produced. They served not only with the Soviet and Warsaw Pact troops, but also with Egypt and Syria in the Arab-Israeli wars. Many communist bloc countries, notably the People's Republic of China, constructed T-34 replicas. As this astounding brief history of the legendary T-34 throughout its battles and upgrades went, so will our channel, to provide you with more content like this if you press that like and subscribe button. Thank you for watching.